At this event, which is the second in DFDL's Real Estate Breakfast Seminar Series in 2018, we hear from experts in the real estate sector what it will take to transform the coastal area of Sihanoukville into a world-class tourism destination and a vibrant commercial hub.
So I'm here as Associate Director of CBRE Cambodia to give you an overview of the current Sihanoukville market, where we see it going over the next few years, and what trends and influences are currently affecting the market. We can see that international hotel chains have sat up and are starting to take notice of the investment that's being ploughed into the region. We can see the government making some changes to legislation to support the environment, particularly with regards to the Marine National Park. Key, of course, to Sihanoukville's current success is the growth and expansion of the airport. 2017, substantial growth, 115% increase in traffic flow, but it was coming from a very low base, and it's probably about to hit capacity. So by Q3 2018, we expect the airport to be able to handle 500,000 passengers, but last year it handled 338. So at the current time, Sihanoukville International Airport operates both internal routes and routes to Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh City, as well as 7 cities in mainland China. Supporting the airport and its growth and expansion, of course, are road infrastructure, very key for the logistics operation of Cambodia. Sihanoukville, the only international accessible deep-water port in the country. This is something that JICA is supporting strongly in terms of its expansion. In addition, we're seeing the Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway, nearly $2 billion worth of investment funded by the Chinese government, and an expansion of National Road 3. Really, those two road infrastructure projects, combined with the continual growth of the airport, are the game-changing aspects for Sihanoukville. So we look at land prices. Over the course of 2017, we saw in prime areas, so that's beachfront land and also the prime commercial and residential sites, the land prices increased roughly 33%. Now the retail and office space is actually part of mixed-use projects, so they're supported by residential and hotel-led development. In total, the 14 residential projects in the market will deliver around 8,000 units, so 3,000 units expected to be delivered next year. Certainly the trend for China will continue into this year. The first few months to which the government have released data indicate that we're on for another double-digit growth figure, probably around 10 to 12% for the year. And China is, again, leading the way with a substantial change in arrival numbers. 2 million tourists in 2017, roughly 25% of them were international. So we're seeing lots of very high-value investments being considered for the province, including power plants, oil refineries, and lots of increasing interest in manufacturing and logistics. So there's plenty of opportunity for investment in infrastructure for Sihanoukville, and that adds opportunity in other areas.
We went to see the government in 2012. The government passed a circular on the development of the coast, and we had lots of questions on how it was going to be implemented. We went to see the Ministry of Land Management, and we basically told the ministry, so how are you going to promote the way to develop projects and sustainable projects and large projects in Sihanoukville? Then we defined a methodology and try to define what could be useful. In the end, we followed these steps, and we thought that what would be very important is to promote a way to do projects. So in the end, that the investors can come and be confident that their financiers come and to Cambodia and accept to finance, accept the risk, that sufficient infrastructure can be developed for these projects. We came up also with some objectives, how to balance all these aspects: preservation issues, natural risk, a need for residential space, need for new types of developments, resorts, entertainment centers, residential as well. Give some objectives to the government to deal with these different dynamics. The idea was also to protect investors, protect the environment, protect the local users, the occupants as well, and include them in that development scheme. The government has, in 2015, started implementing that industrial development policy you might have heard about, and this is what it is for some of these principles. And that policy does not only address the fact that we need to streamline the investment, the industrial development in different priority sectors, but also what's going to happen with specific locations in the countries. The entire Sihanoukville province is supposed to be a special economic zone. So again, how can it work? A special economic zone, industrial development with tourism and hospitality. 3 priorities. The general framework, we may have already some components of that. The tailored framework, which is the dedicated framework that you need for the development of that particular area, and then how to implement projects. The dedicated framework, so the sub-decree we're talking about, has not been passed yet. So we asked the ministry whether we could still start implementing PPPs without having the dedicated framework, the sub-decree passed, and just use the methodology in that sub-decree. The Ministry of Land Management has actually agreed to that. So we've already started working on 2 of these projects, and it's quite interesting because we sort of create the rules as we develop the strategy for these projects, as we identify the needs for the development of these projects, working hand in hand, private sector and public sector. There's a very good methodology because in the end the government is also learning from that, being quite open to the discussion with international financing institutions, private banks, private sector, construction companies, engineering companies, developers. So that's quite promising. A way that we've tried to promote, which is quite well developed in Europe, is that we try to build this under what we call the coastal development agreement. So it's a commitment from all the landowners in a dedicated area to deal with construction rights. So basically you give 1 or 2 years to all the landowners to be in line with the project plan to actually contribute to the project so they can get their construction rights. Everybody needs to contribute. The good thing is that you still get some incentive, tax incentive, benefits. The prices go up in the area. You can still develop this project, large-scale project on a reasonable scale, even if the land is already owned by multiple local landowners. Monitoring by the government is also something very important because there needs to be some control over these projects. In the meantime, it's still possible to start working on PPP models that we start implementing in Cambodia. There's no comprehensive PPP legislation yet, but it's a contractual model that's actually quite flexible to implement. There are models that we can use from other countries, we can apply to Cambodia with the endorsements of the Cambodian authorities. So we feel a very promising type of projects for Cambodia, and I'd like to support that. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. It's very well located. We have beautiful beaches and islands, existing connectivity, international airport, a port, competitive labor cost that's valid for Cambodia, available land, and a very high beach tourism demand from neighboring countries. I would say we're really at the crossroad for the destination, and the development that we're seeing right now is pretty intense. There is no doubt that in the next 20 years, you will have a massive flow of people coming from the north, especially China, towards that temperate area with a nice body of water. Today in Sihanoukville, there are no brands. So imagine someone, let's say from China, India, Korea, or even France, the US, they want to go to Sihanoukville. And what do they have in Sihanoukville? They don't know. No name will resonate to them. The reason why it's very important to start with branded projects, and I'm talking about hotels, I'm talking about retail, F&B, everything, it's because it brings comfort. Over the next 20 years, the Chinese tourism will change tourism in the world, especially in Asia. So as you can see here, we're talking about mind-blowing numbers. We're talking about 120, 130 million people last year that went out of China to travel the world. This is going to be 240 million in the next 5 years. And today, the highest growth is in Vietnam and Cambodia. It's more than 30, 35, 40% last year for Cambodia. So that's really a very strong indicator, and this is going to increase. Why do they come to Cambodia? It's close, it's cheap, it's easy to come with all those new airlines, and of course they go to Angkor Wat, but more and more they want the beach. Is then to develop the soft infrastructure, the housing, training, education infrastructure, healthcare, affordable housing. You can see that there are cruise ships today landing in Sihanoukville at the port, 40 of them 2 years ago, so that trend is increasing. If we had branded hotels, if we had proper entertainment and international standard developments, those 2,000 passengers will come down. What is the process to develop a tourism destination? The first one is you need to build the infrastructure. And as part of building the infrastructure, you need to have the first branded hotels. And it's interesting because we're right now getting at that level in Sihanoukville. We're just starting to hear about those projects. Accor, Marriott, about 6, 7, 8 hotels coming to Sihanoukville. So we're right there.